So we're live, but we're going to give everybody out on Facebook a few minutes to get situated.
Sounds good.
For you guys who are tuning in, I'm Franz Borkart with Geaux Rouge. We scheduled a very cool conversation today with Dr. Sasha from LSU Online. She's kind of a big deal. You may have read an article recently. Was it in the Business Report?
Yep.
Or one of the, yeah, I mean, kind of a big deal, Doc. So we're going to give everybody a second or two to get situated, and then we're going to talk about online learning with COVID-19. The doc is going to give us a little bit of time of her busy time. And then towards the end of this, if you guys have questions, you can send a question on the Facebook Live. Hey, Michelle Hidalgo, what's going on? You can send a question on Facebook Live, and I'll ask the doc. So, Dr. Sasha, how are you doing?
I am well. How are you?
Not too shabby. I'm sitting in a very quiet, dark law office. It's going great. So things are going very well. I wanted to have you on. You've been a guest on the Geaux Rouge show before. You've been a guest on one of our Thirsty Thursdays. This is kind of the best we can do for Thirsty Thursday right now.
I have my coffee, so.
Me too. Shout out to La Divina. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about online learning from the perspective of LSU, because I know that there's going to be a transition coming up in the summer and the fall. Also, very, very cool. Yesterday, I was reading my daily updates from the Business Report, and I saw an article about the CARE Act and online learning. So I also want to talk to you about that as well. So Doc, let's jump in. What's going on with LSU Online these days?
So we are just launching programs all over the place. So we have brand new undergraduate programs. We are supporting actually several programs in the medical area. So we're supporting an RN to BSN program at LSU Alexandria, a master's in public health through Shreveport. And we just launched, our first, I want to say 8 undergraduate degrees this year, and then we're tracking to 23 additional programs by fall 2 next year. And then, as you took one of our micro creds. We have a whole series of professional development online micro creds and certifications that we're offering. So the big thing is that we have something new. Like every 8 weeks, we're launching new programs, a lot of them in technology. We also have a scholarship that we just launched for our micro creds. So cool. It's called a career change scholarship, right? So it's for folks who've been displaced from their jobs. We've seen a lot of that, particularly in the service industry, and folks who need to upskill or reskill in something else maybe than what they had previously worked in. And so that actually is 30% off of the fees for our micro creds, which are fully online. Right. So we're doing a lot of really exciting things, and we have a very different model than some other large institutions. So we do accept things like certifications for prior learning assessment credit. So if you're a working professional in a field, say you have an AWS certification, cloud computing, cloud practitioner, for example, you can apply that towards one of your degrees. And so we're excited about those things. We're a very progressive group, and we're growing.
So for those who don't know, and you should, because we've covered this on Geaux Rouge Radio, but for those who don't know, microcredits are a non-degree program where you can learn something. And it sounds like in this instance, you can learn vocational skills that you can apply to getting a new job. Whatever that means for you. I have a good friend of mine, Laura, who just got into one of your master's programs, I think for leadership. So congrats. Awesome. And shout out to Laura Sue. I'm loud capping her publicly. Don't tell FERPA. But she was very excited about it, and she's going to start working on her master's remotely.
That's fantastic.
I want to talk about, and look, with everything that's going on, I hate to say this, but it kind of is true. You guys were ideally situated to address what's going on, and I don't want to call it an opportunity, but it was kind of remote learning and you guys have been together like peanut butter and jelly. So talk to me a little bit about, has the university integrated what you guys are doing into normal undergraduate and educational classes for what's going on right now?
Yeah, so very interesting question. So we're being very cognizant to say, a switch to delivery of instruction online in the middle of a semester is not something really that's best practice.
Right,
So
right.
this is definitely what we're engaged in now is more of a continuity planning, right? So these courses, our faculty have been totally on board and our students have been very accommodating given the fact that this is an unprecedented global event. And so we have transitioned on ground experiences to our learning management system, Moodle. We're calling this remote learning, kind of like we were all thrown into remote work, right?
Okay.
So in a fully online program, or even in a course that a student would engage in online sort of more on purpose, right? Like they want to register for an online course. That is a course that is set up and designed differently from the beginning. So one of the things that we put together very quickly, first of all, we did have more of an infrastructure for this, for faculty support, for getting folks online fast, but also our student support services at the university, which are amazing. We have a Center for Academic Success. We have communication across the curriculum. We have our Center for Student Athletes. The libraries, they all shifted and pivoted very quickly to providing all of these services online. Most of those services we already offered online to our online students or to students who couldn't show up. But all of a sudden, students who couldn't show up were 100% of our students, right?
Right.
So they scaled very, very quickly, but we were in a much better position than a lot of universities that didn't have infrastructure in place. So we are seeing an increase in inquiries about our fully online programs. Traditionally, though, these serve a very different audience. So traditionally, students who engage in fully online programs are a little bit further along in their lives, in their careers, or they're coming back to finish a degree because life happened and they weren't able to do it in the traditional way. But, kind of all bets are off for fall. So we're not really sure and again, within the context of an intentional fully online program, we're not really sure if our audience is going to change, right? Or if it's not, but we're working across the university to figure out a whole bunch of scenarios for how do we support our students if A happens, or if B happens, or if C happens, because obviously our goal for our on-ground students, particularly our freshmen, our returning sophomores, juniors, and seniors in our traditional programs, is to get them back on that on-campus experience when it's safe to do so.
Right.
And so what that looks like.
Yeah. So I took a course online. Thank you guys very much for letting me do that on leadership.
We were thrilled.
Thank you. The interface was very easy. I told your people, as a old dog using that technology, it was very, very easy. What has it been like getting the faculty and staff who maybe aren't used to using this technology? What's it been like teaching those dogs new tricks, so to speak? And I didn't say old dogs, I said those dogs.
Well, first of all, I have to say, it was an incredible collaborative effort because our faculty were like on it. We had what we call hypercare support. So we had additional trainings for faculty. We had off-hour support, weekend support, like 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Saturdays and Sundays. We were open online for faculty. Most of them have embraced Zoom, so the synchronous sessions, because those are more analogous to what like a lecture course would be, or at the graduate level, maybe just a discussion-based course. So we've had great adoption to the point where, we're about to break some systems. So not Zoom, I mean, Zoom can scale, but we have many systems that we're working to make sure are resilient. But I would say that our faculty have been completely on it. In in a very challenging situation, because normally, you take months to get people steeped in the environment, and things are very intentional, and you think about assessment very holistically, and we have a whole design team. In this case, it was like, hey guys, in 2 weeks, everything's online for the rest of the term. And we did have the advantage of, when we press pause, it was a week in advance of spring break. So we actually had 2 weeks for faculty to prepare for this, which most institutions didn't. They just flipped the switch and it was like Friday to Monday, or some of them did it over spring break. But we wanted to make sure that it wasn't like everyone had this break that they were planning for, and then all of a sudden that becomes a really, really intensive preparation time. So we did have that 2 weeks, which I think really helped us.
So what's interesting to me is, and I've seen at a high school level, I've seen a Zoom classroom where a teacher is in their classroom. They are teaching like they normally would teach it. It was an algebra class. And then what you could see is all these little faces like the Brady Bunch watching. So it's interesting to me kind of how we're utilizing technology to accomplish this very important task of educating.
Right.
Slightly changing gears. So I'm the guy, as a small business owner, that when the CARE Act came out, I only really paid attention to the PPP. I didn't really, and the SBA loan, I didn't really pay attention to a lot of other stuff.
Right.
Talk a little bit. I read an article yesterday about the CARE Act really going towards education and online learning, remote learning.
Right.
So,
right.
Doctor, tell us a little bit about what the CARE Act is going to mean for you, for LSU Online, and for the state as a whole.
Interesting. Okay, so the first giant asterisk we need to put next to that CARE Act is that the interpretations of the regulations around that kind of the borders and where that can be applied have already evolved from, we have an amazing financial aid team and an amazing enrollment management team, and they have been like on that in terms of understanding how we can support students. We were a little disappointed that our fully online students who were in online courses before are not eligible for this funding because they were already online. So the CARES, as it is currently interpreted, it is really designed for students at that high need level who are Pell eligible, who were in face-to-face classes, who now suddenly were put online. And the intention of that is to take away some of, there might have been cost associated with that person's internet or like having a computer, things like that. But it's very, how it's being applied, there's some wiggle room institutionally, and then there's these kind of gray bands of understanding of what the intended borders of that funding is that we're getting more and more clarity on. But the majority of that funding is designed to go towards our students, which is great. I mean, that's fantastic. Again, as it applies to that, it doesn't, in my mind, there's a lot more to do, because families have folks who've lost employment. A lot of traditional age students in particular have those jobs that they need to pay for school that are in the service industry, right? So when I was in college, even if you get a scholarship for your tuition, I worked as a server, to pay my bills to live, and restaurants are closed, servers are laid off.
Right.
So there's a whole series of kind of needs that aren't really addressed by that impact our students as well. So it's just, there's a lot of factors that go into it. And it's actually like everything else the federal government decides to, has a bunch of borders around it that constrain you. And many times those are very well intentioned, but in the application of that, it can get tricky. And that's why, thank God, we have the experts that we have over in our financial aid, Amy Merrick's, Jose Aviles, who's head of our enrollment management. They're rock stars in their field, which interpreting legislation like that, you kind of need to be.
Right. So part of my life recently has been looking at legislation on a federal level and saying, well, I think this is what it says. And, and there's nothing that says it doesn't say this. And, you know, and then a couple of days later, then somebody will say, well, no, this is SBA, or somebody will say, no, this is what we mean by this. So, let me ask a piggyback question as to what you need for online learning. So I have an office. I take it for granted that the technology I would need is pretty much at my fingertips. But let's say you were somebody who didn't have a computer, maybe didn't have a tablet. What at the bare minimum do you need to do online courses at this point? Will a tablet do? Well, do you need a computer?
I would recommend a computer, yeah.
Okay, okay.
But if
and that wasn't meant to be, and by the way, wasn't meant to be a dumb question. It was more so.
No, but I understand exactly what you're talking about, and what we're actually trying to do for, so our online and continuing ed divisions are one division, and we have a pre-college division, and we're working out how do we offer online camps. Our learning management system, so what you took the leadership training on, does have responsive design. So you could take it on your cell phone, right?
Right.
But it's hard to type an essay on a cell phone, and you can't do remote proctoring on a cell phone.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, you know, the hardware isn't always the expensive part right now. Like, you can get a cheap laptop, you know, but it's easy for me to say $200 to $300 for our students. Sometimes it is not easy to say $200 to $300. So if a student is going to borrow a neighbor's laptop, it's hard to get, you know, the time they need to do the things. The internet issue, like having fast internet is a problem in some rural areas. So in some cases, it's almost better to do it on this. And you can, I mean, my phone does dictation. So if you have to do an essay on your phone, you can. But for a traditional student, I would not recommend it. Now, the state does have an initiative for making sure students have the ability to have laptops and things. So there are options for students when they contact the university. But, you know, ideally, data shows us that students who have their own laptop and their own equipment are the ones that have, particularly, frankly, at the community college level, where this research was done, that's the most successful student, is the one that has their own equipment.
So a couple more things. I want to transition back to vocational learning. So let's say you are a service industry person, you're not working right now, and you're like, you know, I wasn't really planning on being in the service industry for the rest of my life. Right. What are some of the types of training you can get through you guys? And then also, where would you go to get more information?
Yes. So the URL is an easy one. It's online.lsu.edu. And for folks who are transitioning fields, some of the things that I would highly recommend are technology. The technology field is still growing. We are expanding our technology portfolio, but if someone has kind of a logical thought pattern, if someone has been in any sort of like process related fields, like even a manager at a restaurant, or heck, an individual server who has that kind of logistical brain, project management is a huge growth field, right? So project management is a big one. DevOps, which is like software development, that's really growing. We have a whole suite in that. We're launching things in data visualization. Analytics is huge right now. There's a lot of those things. And these are also fields that, generally speaking, you can work remotely. So given the uncertainty, you know, even if this whole thing does resolve, how we work with each other is going to be transformed a little bit for forever, I think, right? And so, like, my husband has worked virtually for part-time virtually for years now, and his job started as a face-to-face office job, but it's primarily software based.
So I've embraced the fact that while right now it's necessary for me to meet with clients, potential clients, this way, This is going to have to be something I offer even when the dust settles. And, candidly, this is okay for me. So last thing I want to talk about, we've got a little bit of time, and I haven't seen any questions yet. So you must be doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, that's it. I'm answering them all preemptively.
Yeah. So, okay. So in as much as you cannot forecast what's going to happen tomorrow, what things are you guys working on that you can tell us about now that will kind of make life better for people either in the program or thinking about being in the program?
Oh, great. Yeah. So kind of to parse that out by audience, our traditional students who would be coming to campus for their summer courses, all of our summer courses are being offered online. So right now we're working with faculty to create those courses in a more, now that we have a little lead time, it's still short, but at least we have lead time. So creating those courses so that students can, walk into a well-prepared course. And those are 7-week courses over the summer. So for our traditional students. So the big piece of that is building those courses. On the LSU Online side, a big part of it is the customer service that we offer. So we have concierges for our students, and we have seen an uptick of interest in fully online degrees, obviously. So having that sort of white glove service for those online students at a distance is really, really important for us. As we move towards the fall, I think we're going to see an increased proportion of courses being available online. So it's sort of an online component for most or all courses. Students are, even our traditional students, they come from their high schools having done, online learning. It may look different. It may be a adaptive learning, or it may be a learning management system, or it might be Khan Academy or something, but they come with a technology literacy. And there's no reason why we can't be a little bit more flexible in our courses to accommodate for that. And this is kind of the Big Bang theory of getting everyone a little more steeped in the digital environment of learning, or rather the environment of digital learning. It's not ideal, but because we're here, we want to do it as well as we can. And as much as possible, we're supporting folks coming for that traditional on-campus residential experience this fall, and trying to figure out how do we make sure that we have options that support the safety of our students. So we wouldn't, I know that we're seeing some colleges say, oh, we're already thinking of fall as fully online. We're thinking of fall as to go back to normal, right?
Well,
safety first.
Right. So I envision, and I'm not in education, but I envision that this is advanced Darwinism at its finest, where we're forced to evolve, right?
Yes.
And I think to some degree, what I think this may also give us an opportunity for is some hybridization of learning.
Absolutely.
At the university level. And look, I love the idea, candidly, while I like going to a classroom, I like the social interaction, I liked being on campus, I liked all those parts about LSU for the 9 years I was there. There is something to be said about, all your classes don't have to be that way. And if it makes you a safer person, both for other people as well as yourself. So one last time again, the URL that people need to go to.
Yes, it's online.lsu.edu. Now, I always get this, and time zones are like my personal disaster. Is this showing up the right way?
It is.
Backwards.
Love it. It's okay, perfect.
So that's us in my super high tech.
Well, and Doc, I'm gonna post it on the page when I stop the Facebook Live. I'll post a link to the website as well. Awesome. Guys, I will tell you, the concierge service, and that's y'all's term, but it really does feel like a concierge service. Yeah. It was very helpful. Anytime I have issues, and most of it was even if you're like me and you don't know a lot about tech, it was very intuitive. It was, the instructions were good and all that, but your staff was very, very accommodating. So anything you want to close with before we wrap this up, Doc?
Well, first of all, of course, thank you for the opportunity to chat. I appreciate that. But we do just want to let folks know that we are here to support them and support the community. And we're doing everything we can to make sure that there is continuity in people's lives. And we also are going through this ourselves. I mean, all of us are home. My kids are in the other room. I mean, working from home has its own challenges. So we know that our students who are suddenly at home with their children, those are challenges too. So we are here to support them, and we have something new at LSU all the time.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Sasha, very much
Thank
for being
you.
with us. You're always welcomed as a guest. You've probably, I'm going to say this, you've probably had the most airtime as any of
Wow.
my other guests. Shout out to Charlotte. Shout out to Charlotte for making that
Charlotte,
happen.
yes, Charlotte
So,
Bencast. She's our guru.
so guys, look, you've been listening to a conversation about LSU Online and online remote learning. We will do more of these kind of webinar conversations. If you have questions that you didn't ask online today, if you get them to me, I'll make sure that they get them. But definitely check out online.lsu.edu, and you guys have a great day.
Thank you.